It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.
Hey guys, how's it going? It is Wednesday, May 19th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening today on this glorious Wednesday? We'll get some coronavirus updates, current news from around the world, and of course, realizing from the Tuesday morning message. All right, everyone, the question of the day, as it is every single day, it is, how are you guys doing? How are you? It is Wednesday. We got service tonight. Sunstein's going to be preaching, so it should be great. Thank you for all of you joining us here on the Morning Star Drive. Looking forward to some more preaching by the Lord. And let's start this day well with today's show. I just want to remind everyone to keep liking and commenting. I want to hear from you guys and see how you're doing. Write your questions, requests, testimonies, feedback on the segments, and tell me if there's anything new that you want to start too. Yesterday too, we just started we had another vlog, okay? And on the vlog, it was a situation that happened to me when I was in Korea, where I was at a car standoff, face to face with a total ajushi, right? So older than me, and of course Korean culture, he rules the road and he knows everything else, but it turned into something pretty funny. I thought it was quite interesting, and it was just an interesting experience more than anything else. So I share experience of what happened with me in Korea, so go ahead and watch that if you haven't seen that yet. And of course, remember this week's Sunday edition, I interviewed who? It is Joyce Wong from San Francisco. I hope you guys really enjoyed that crazy, amazing story of God's grace and love towards her, so make sure you catch that. And of course, next Sunday edition, we'll be meeting another person from around the world. So go ahead and look forward to that interview too. All right. Oh yeah, and for the lesson on the fall, that lesson is on Patreon. Go ahead and look at that. It's pretty extensive. It went pretty deep for that one. So go ahead and take a look at that one too. Excuse me. I think I was talking too fast. I breathed in and something went in my mouth. I'm hoping it's not a bug or something like that, okay? So, with the hopes and prayers from all of you, hoping that it's not a bug that flew into my mouth, let's begin today's show, going into today's feature artist of the day. So, from these member artists from around the world, they're working hard, producing amazing music, all based on their inspirations and the word they've received from the Lord in this history. We're gonna start off with Renee Lai from Taiwan. She has she does music, but she does two different ones. She's on YouTube and she sings cover songs, and that one is called Renee Sings. I believe that's what it's called, but she has a YouTube channel, and those are all cover songs, and then she has a SoundCloud channel, which is all Providence songs that are done in a more kind of what you call modern way. So it's really cool. Renee Lai from Taiwan. The song we're going to hear today is a cover from Avril Lavigne, who is Canadian. The song is Head Above Water. I really enjoy this song. Second one is Zeniac from the Paper Music Associates in Korea. And this song is her latest single, which is Khalifa. And last but not least, it is Francis Han from New York, his jazz band, with the song that is very similar to this podcast. It is Morning Star. So guys, let's enjoy and listen and pray and support these member artists from around the world.
I've gotta keep the calm before the storm. I don't want less, I don't want more. But by the windows and the doors, to keep me safe, to keep me warm. Yeah, my life is what I'm fighting for. Can't part the sea, can't reach the shore. And my voice becomes the driving force. I won't let this pull me overboard. God, keep my head above water, don't let me drown. It gets harder, I'll meet you there at the altar as I fall down to my knees. Don't let me drown. I'll be waiting. I'm too young to fall asleep. God, keep my head above water. Don't let me drown. It gets harder. I'll meet you there at the altar as I fall down to my knees. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Don't let me drown. Don't let me drown, drown, drown. Keep my head above water, above water.
And boy, is that smooth. That is Francis Han. It's jazz band all the way over there in New York, and that song is Morning Star. Before that, Zeniac from the Paper Music Associates in Korea, and that song is Khalifa, her latest single. And Renee Lai, our featured artist of the day from Taiwan, and this is from her YouTube channel, and this is Head Above Water, a cover from Avril Lavigne. All right, guys, so let's get into some coronavirus updates for today. In the world, there are over 164.2 million cases with 3.4 million deaths at a 2.07% mortality rate. So let's take a look at top 5 countries, and we'll base them on the daily infection rates. So the U.S. on top with 33.7 million cases, and they have hit a new milestone, 600,000 deaths. Yes, that is huge, okay? It's unfathomable to know that this many people have died in one country, and they're at 1.78% mortality rate. India, 25.2 million cases, 278,000 deaths at 1.1%. And we all know that from the latest news we heard last week, India could possibly be like 5 to 10 times higher than what it really is for the mortality rate, which basically means that they would be far and above beyond what the U.S., like over 1 million deaths they're probably looking at. And that's 1.1% at the moment, but that's from what is reported. Brazil, they say the same thing, 15.6 million cases, 436,000 deaths at 2.79%. Argentina, 3.3 million cases, 71,000 deaths at 2.13%. And then Colombia, 3.1 million cases, 81,000 deaths, and the only country to have a rising mortality rate in the 24-hour span to 2.61%. Sweden at 1.38%, and Belgium drops to 2.39% in their mortality rates. So now let's take a look at the daily infection rates. India, for the first time in a long time, they're under 300,000. They're at 281,000 cases in a day. And that, I believe, is the highest even the U.S. Has gone. Brazil at 36. And the U.S., 2 days straight, under 30,000, 21,000 cases today. Argentina, 16. And then Colombia at 15,000 cases in a single day. Over here, Southeast Asia, Philippines on top, 5,700 cases in a day. And then Malaysia, once again, second with 3,700. And Indonesia at 3,000 cases in a single day. All right, so let's take a look at the current news. Top 3 news going around the world. We're going to start off with India. Okay, so there is a cyclone, Taukte. That's the name of the cyclone, because I don't know if I'm reading it right, but it's like Cyclone Taukte. The storm weakens after landfall in COVID-battered India. So a cyclone at its peak classified as extremely severe has made landfall in India's state of Gujarat with wind speeds of up to 160 kilometers an hour, okay? So Cyclone Taukte traveled along India's western coast, narrowly missing the city of Mumbai. At least 12 people were killed and 200,000 people were evacuated. Now, the Navy has sent 3 warships to try to rescue hundreds of people stranded off the coast in 2 barges, and the cyclone comes amid a coronavirus wave that has overwhelmed Indian hospitals. So rain and wind speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour ravaged coastal areas in the western state of Gujarat, uprooting trees, electricity poles, and in a district called Saurashtra, electricity has been cut as a precautionary measure. Now, on Tuesday morning, the India Meteorological Department, the IMD, not our IMD, said in a tweet that the cyclone had further weakened and would continue to weaken gradually in the next 3 hours. But authorities have asked people to remain cautious as some areas in Gujarat continue to witness strong winds. Now, late on Monday local time, the IMD announced that the extremely severe cyclonic storm had begun to make landfall in Gujarat, and it took several hours for the eye of the cyclone to come ashore. And Taukte is the strongest cyclone to strike the region since 1998, and both Gujarat and neighboring Maharashtra, home to the city of Mumbai, have been on high alert. Now, although the COVID cases are declining in both states, the devastating effects of India's second wave are still being felt. So what's happening with the boat rescue? The Indian Navy has been taking part in rescue operations to save the people on both of the commercial barges, which are off the coast of Mumbai, the capital of Maharashtra. Now, there were 400 people on board in total, but 146 have been rescued, the Navy said on Tuesday morning. Now, the Navy said it was responding to 2 separate requests for help in extremely challenging conditions, one from a barge adrift near an oil field about 170 kilometers from the coast, and a second from another vessel about 14 kilometers from the coast also. So what precautions did the states take? More than 200,000 people in low-lying areas were moved to shelters, sparking fears of possible new coronavirus clusters in coming weeks. And the federal government has also ordered the vaccine drive to be halted in several coastal towns believed to be at risk. So the storm is also adding to the challenge facing India's hospitals, and Mumbai has already moved 580 COVID-positive patients from dedicated centers to civic hospitals as a precaution. Okay, so yes, people are advised to stay indoors, and anticipation of flooded roads, damaged power lines, and uprooted trees. And thousands of fishing boats have returned to harbor, and hundreds of merchant ships have been asked to reroute. Okay, so that is what's going on. Pretty crazy looking at what is going on there in India, but that is pretty intense to have a cyclone during the coronavirus time, right, where they're being overwhelmed more than anything else. Second thing we're going to do is take a look at the coronavirus, what's happening in Taiwan, because Taiwan, has been doing very, very well, but all of a sudden we're over here and we see that Taiwan has gone to lockdown. So Taiwan has ordered the toughest curbs amid infection spikes, and Taiwan's government has imposed its toughest restrictions so far as the island tries to battle a spike in coronavirus cases. So the authorities are shutting down cinemas and entertainment venues until May 28th, while limiting gatherings to 5 indoors and 10 outdoors. So the president urged the public not to panic buy basic necessities, and Taiwan, which has so far survived the pandemic almost unscathed, reported 207 new infections on Sunday. So the island of 23 million people has recorded about 1,680 infections and only 12 deaths since the start of the pandemic. And Taiwan's impressive success battling the coronavirus has been largely attributed to early and strict border controls. So a ban on foreign visitors and mandatory quarantine for all Taiwanese returning home. And in a separate development on Sunday, Singapore said that all schools as well as junior colleges and universities would shift to home-based learning from May 19th amid a spike in infections. Singapore too, guys. Singapore was doing really well, but they reported 49 new cases, including 38 locally transmitted infections. This is the highest daily tally since September. So Singapore so far has 61,000 cases with only 31 deaths. So, it seems like it's starting to spread a little bit more once again. What are the new restrictions in Taiwan? The government said masks must be worn outdoors, urging people to work and study from home. And the capital, Taipei, remains the main infections hotspot, forcing the city authorities to raise the coronavirus alert there to level 3. So Taiwan has 4 coronavirus response levels, and the level 3 alert stops just short of a lockdown, local media says. And this is basically unprecedented, as Taiwan has until now not had to resort to such restrictions since the outbreak began. So in addition, shoppers across the island are being restricted to buying just 2 items of some goods after supermarket shelves were emptied in recent days. And the president said on Saturday, warned that panic buying would only increase the risk of COVID clusters. Okay. Last but not least, we're going to take a look at what's happening in Myanmar, but these are responses. Okay, responses from Western countries. So U.S., Canada, and the U.K. impose new sanctions on Myanmar military. So coordinated sanctions are the latest thing in a string of punitive measures targeting Myanmar military rulers and related entities. And the U.S., the U.K., and Canada have imposed coordinated sanctions on Myanmar's military rulers and related entities, the latest in a string of punitive measures since the army seized power in a February coup. Now, the U.S. said on Monday that it was targeting the governing state administrative council and 13 officials, freezing any of their U.S. assets and barring Americans from dealing with them. So Canada said it imposed additional sanctions on individuals and entities tied to the Myanmar Armed Forces, while the UK announced sanctions against state-owned enterprise Myanmar Gems Enterprise, which was included in previous US sanctions. So this is good news for them to slowly begin to change, right? Hoping that Myanmar, the military, will turn and not use a lot of violence. But, since February 1st, that coup happened, and they said about 800 people have been killed by security forces since the coup started, and there's over 4,000 people behind bars. So the U.S. and Western countries have steadily added the leading members of the military regime, as well as state enterprises that fund it, to their sanctions list in an effort to pressure the army to return to democracy. So the unrest has continued, however, with bombings, reported daily local militias forming. It is getting pretty wild over there, so we're really hoping that God can make the situation a lot better than it really is right now. All right, guys? So that is the current news for today. I hope you guys really helps you guys out to see what's happening in the world, which means that it's time to go into something a little bit more, what's the word? more spiritual, right? We've got all the physical stuff down. We're going to go a little bit more spiritual. We're going to start off with the praise song Connection, and then everything God has given, and then we'll end it off and break it down with Heard in God's Ears. So as one body of the Morning Star Drive, I hope all of us here will be able to give praise, honor, glory to the Holy Trinity.
Two people may connect just by brushing by. But if skin brushes skin, will they just merely connect? That will make them turn into lovers. If clothing brushes clothes, it could last for 10 years. But if it's skin to skin, 100 years. If it's our hearts that touch them together, we should live for 1,000 years. we hear the word of God, when we realize and take action, all our deeds become words heard in God's ears. He receives our actions, all the things we've done, all the words the Savior speaks, they are secrets from above. I will value every word and act to make them mine. My God, I know the value with every action I take. I'll proclaim the words I love you to the Trinity. Hear the confession of my deeds. I will act upon your word. Please receive my earnest heart, O Trinity. Through the world God created, through the things we go through in our lives, we receive inspiration from heaven. God sends us the Spirit and strength so we can run. All the words the Savior speaks, they are secrets from above. I will value every word and act to make them mine. My God, I know the value with every action I take. I'll proclaim the words I love you to the Trinity. Hear the confession of my deeds. I will act upon your word. Please receive my earnest heart, O Trinity. My God, I know the value with every action I take. I'll proclaim the words I love you to the Trinity. Hear the confession of my deeds. I will act upon your word. Please receive my earnest heart, O Trinity. Oh God, receive my love. May my actions be the words that reach your ears.
And there you go. That is heard in God's ears. Hope you guys enjoyed that time of praise and worship. For that, everything God has given, and of course, the newest song that came out from IETT, that is Connection. All right, guys. So let's get into today's word study. It is Wednesday. We have a service tonight, and of course, we'll go over the Tuesday morning message with you guys today. All right. So a couple of really great points from it, and a lot of amazing stories of how sunscreen works. So a lot of people might get confused, like, why are there so many stories? What's he talking about? Everything is about this week's message about work, right? How did he realize that the 9 to 10 things that he did to go, he went through everything first, receiving the message from the Holy Spirit and saying, this is this week's message, and he realizes through his experience and what he's done, right? So this is about the life and joy of working, which I think is a very suitable and great message for everyone this week, and is very, very fitting with I think it comes in a very, very good sequence. When it started off with testify and teach, right? That was like the big ones for that one for 2 weeks ago. Testify and teach for the Lord. It's like really strong about evangelism, testifying, teaching. And then the week after that was like teaching like with wisdom, right? Finding the location, the right atmosphere, knowing the person's heart, and it's like don't just tell directly what's going on, what the history is about, but be indirect at first, and then after what happens is. After you're indirect, once they accept that, then you can be more direct with the history. So it talks about don't just wildly, just start, like preaching the gospel to everyone, talking about something and testifying, without any intro or whatever. And then this week also talks about, hey, yes, evangelism is important. We got to testify. That's all important. But we do have other important things in life, especially as we live in the body, and that is our bodies, and we have to work. Right? And it was like in the Tuesday morning message, it's like, man, if you live in the big city, if you live in the core of a country, like Seoul would be in Korea, or Busan, right? It would be like LA or New York, Chicago, Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. Like if you live in any of these major cities here in Malaysia, like Kuala Lumpur, in Singapore City, right? If you live in any of those places, you gotta work. Like there's no way that you can just, like everyone in the church can be full-time running, full-time evangelism and all those other different things. It's just impossible. People need to do things wisely, but also understand that there is another side, right? And that is, we're living in the city. It's going to cost money. You have a family. You got to feed them, support them. You need a roof over their head. That is all absolutely necessary, right? And one thing that Sansi did say is we're all blessed. The brides of this history are blessed, so we are going to be able to make the money. We're going to be able to buy a house and do the things that we need to do, right? So I hope that it's something that we really understand, that this is something that is just as important, which is working for our bodies too. One thing I caught on when in the beginning of the Tuesday morning message, it was about doing things at the right time. And I believe the example was like in the winter time, you need to wear the winter clothes. You're not going to sell your winter clothes off, right? It was something like things are done at the right time. And then he proceeded to talk a little bit more about, well, if you think about that, then you have to also think about why are we being told right now to do this? Like, what time is it right now? What is Sunseem setting up for us? Right? What's so important about this time right now? And a lot of times, Sunseem can't say everything that's going on, what God is saying. But a lot of times he can just tell us what God wants us to do, which is to evangelize, which is to testify, which is to work with joy. And this is something that we have to understand deeply and carefully, because this is the time to do it. We don't know exactly what's heading for the future, but God is leading us in a direction that we have to know that this is the time to enjoy the life of work, right? This is a time for us to work, put our mentality into it, become those that do everything together with the Lord in everything that we do, right? So we don't know exactly what the time is. It's something not very explicit, like do it now because in the next 2 years this is going to happen. Or if we do this well, then this is going to happen in the future. It doesn't work like that, right? So it seems pretty much very, very clear about that Sunseem only tells what God tells him to say. And then in the Tuesday morning message, he's like, yeah, it's the right time. Right now is the time. And it has to make you think that God is planning for something coming up. There's something that's going to be happening, and we have to really understand this well. Right? So I hope that all of us will take this word seriously, right? The testifying, the teaching, learning how to lecture, developing your character, and then of course doing things at the right time, right? So, and of course it's also like, one thing talks about is the greatest work you can do, right? What is the greatest work? Right? And I think in John chapter 6, someone actually does, I think Sensei brought that up too. Someone asked, what can we do to do the work of God? And then Jesus says, the work of God is to believe in the one that he sent. And that is the greatest work. Without belief, nothing happens, nothing goes, right? You need to believe first. It starts in your mind. So it's not like your body goes first, your mind goes first. And the only reason we do something is because we believe in it, or we believe in the person that's asking us to do it, right? So I hope that this is something that we can really get our hearts and our minds wrapped around, right? What is the greatest work? First and foremost is to believe. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do, is to believe that the Messiah is here, right? To believe in the Messiah that was on the cross. That God sent the Messiah. Like, it's really, if you think about how crazy that concept is, to believe it's happening, like right now, is something like, whoa, yeah, that belief in itself is an action which is powerful. And that's why a lot of people may not understand how belief is the first thing that matters. Right? That's why it's always in the Bible, believe in the Lord and you'll be saved. Believe in the Lord and you and your household will be saved. Call upon the name of the Lord and you and your household will be saved. Like, that is something that people don't really get. It's like, well, it's just in your mind. And the answer is, the mind is where reality is. Right? It's just that in this world, the mind becomes reality through our bodies. But when you go to the spiritual realm, it's everything you think and everything you do is reality itself. Right? So, the will of God, we have to fulfill the will, and the will of God is to send the Messiah. It's not an ordinary person. Someone sent literally by God, by the Holy Spirit, by the Holy Son, literally sent, and we have to understand the greatest work is to believe in this person. So it's kind of like that verse in 1 John chapter 4, verse 20, is if you cannot love the one that you see, how can you love the one you don't see? It's kind of that concept is, if you can't treat the one that God has sent well, then you can't treat God, the invisible one, well either. Because that is believing in his words, believing the words of God, believing that God sent this person, right? So, it's really, he says that, I like that point when Sunseem says, I'm not God, I'm not Jesus, right? I'm sent by God to give salvation, but I'm not God, right? I love how he clarifies that point, like clearly to us. I'm not God, I'm not Jesus, but I'm sent by God to bring salvation to the world. And that's much different than the concept that we hear in Christianity, is like God came down and then did this, right? And I think this is much better, a much more clearer concept, and it's something that shows God's love even more in this relationship history, right? So, what about that point he's saying that the biggest fight, what is it? The two fights that we're fighting right now is against Satan and the dark forces, and then against yourself. Yeah, I really like that point. Right? You have to gain victory. You have to gain the victory in fighting yourself and fighting the world, or like Satan's and demons. Right? God is seeing everything. You have to gain the victory. And I think that first victory we fight every day is where? That first victory we fight every day is actually in your mind. If you think about that, right? The first victory you fight is in your mind. It's in your heart. And that's something I think we have to really understand clearly and really well. The biggest victory is in your heart and your mind. Right? And then against Satan's and demons. Because we learned the Satan principle lecture too. It's Satan can't tempt you just out of nowhere. It's got to be something you really want. Right? It doesn't make any sense to be tempted for something that you don't care about. Right? If someone doesn't really care about like candies, like, they're not, then why would you get tempted by it? Because you walk past it at 7-Eleven every day and you don't really care about it because it's not something on your mind. But if it's chocolate, you're like, oh, then where's Satan going to tempt you? It's something that's already in your mind. And I like that because where's that? James chapter 1, verse 13 and 14. And verse 14 says that you're tempted by your own evil desires. So, I was like, wow. We have to gain that victory, especially over yourself, and it starts in the morning by gaining the victory over your mind when it comes to pre-dawn prayer. And I think it's a really big thing when you think about it. That's the first victory of the day, is the pre-dawn, right? So we have to be those who are continuously working and understanding how great working is. And then the two things Sanseem said is, if you continuously work, you will be successful. If you continuously work, you will be comfortable. And those are the two things people want, right? To be successful and comfortable. But you cannot do it without working. Lazy people get no success, and lazy people get no comfort. So what are you going to, it's totally not about, you should only be thinking about lecturing and evangelizing. No, because we have families, we have careers, we have all these other different things that are important to the church too. It is. Right? It is very important, because Sanseem said that, remember what he said in what did he say? He said, what did he say? He said, in the beginning, he only did spiritual work. Like that type of work in the spirit, right? Only spiritual work, nothing else. And you're like, oh yeah, that's so true. But then he said, if I kept only doing spiritual work without anything laborious, like making wood, pruning trees, doing all these other different things, then what would happen? You'd have no place as a home. right? You wouldn't have a church. You wouldn't build churches. You couldn't buy churches, right? You couldn't get the things like have chairs and pews and like electronics for the praise and all these other different. You couldn't get them, right? And we have to realize that if Sunseam only delivered the message, we wouldn't have our own church, and it would be so much sadness because we don't have a place to stay. And what were some of the biggest reasons why we were sad? That Sunseam was sad is because we're renting places, and since we're not the owner, they tell us when we have to leave. But Sunseam's like, no, I want my own place, so no one can tell us when to leave. We can stay as long as we want, and that's why One Window was such a major accomplishment, right? And for us too, in the church, if everyone was doing full-time Providence, yeah, we'd be like, oh my gosh, you know how great evangelism would be? True, but you'd have no place to do it. And these people can be like, where's your church? Oh, our church is outside. Where outside? Anywhere. God is everywhere, so our church is everywhere. Like, that'd be so weird. We really wanted our own church. And there's so much sadness because of all the people kicking us out from venue to venue. But now that we have our own, it's so amazing, right? God wants us to gain. If you only evangelize, then there's nothing left for your descendants. Now, what does that mean? Like, if you think about at like the family level, if you don't gain anything, you leave nothing behind for your children, like a house, right? You leave no house behind. You leave no money behind, inheritance. You leave nothing behind for your children, right? And this is why when you think about it, it's also at the church level. If you buy a church, what happens? You leave something behind for the future generation of the church. When we're gone, at least they have a building. When we're gone, at least they have this amazing sound system. When they're gone, they'll have all the equipment that they need. If you look at Providence Inheritance, it's Warmyongdong. They have something where everyone can gather and come to and commemorate 316 Memorial Building, all these new buildings that are being built, and commemorate where Sunseam lives, all these other different things. Without it, we don't have anything for the entire world, and we're conscious of leaving something behind for the next generation. And that's what I really thought about, when I do this podcast, not so much this podcast, but at least the Sunday editions, we're leaving behind a legacy for the future generations to know what types of people were here in this history. You know what I mean? We get to know, whoa, this is the type of person that was here before, right? So, Sunseam said we started off with the volleyball court because we wanted our own volleyball court. So they started off with a field the size of a volleyball court so that they could play volleyball together. And the cool thing, the last thing I think that I really enjoyed is when Sunseam said that if Jesus lived longer, he would have made something. And for me, I totally believe that too. Because if you think about it, Christianity would need to build their churches. Christianity would need to, build something, leave something behind for the future generations. And if it's like a repeating history, most likely Jesus would have left something behind in Bethlehem. He would have had some type of commemorative place in Bethlehem where his hometown was, so that it would leave it for generations to come. And it's like, yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think that's something that we have to think about, the legacies we leave behind for this generation, the legacies you leave behind for for what we're doing right now. So many things to think about, and I really hope that all of us here can get our hearts and our minds thinking clearly of what we need to do. All right. So that was a Tuesday morning message. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. And you guys, of course, we're going to look forward to some more word tonight for the Wednesday service that Sunseam gives. So that is the word study for today. I hope you guys got something from it. And if you have anything you want to add, go ahead and put that in the comments, which means it goes into the song of choice for today. The song of choice today, very, very famous song. Very famous song from the 80s, I believe. Yeah, this is from the early 80s. This group is called Naked Eyes. And you're like, oh, who are they? But if you hear the song, you'll know what it is. The song is called Always Something There to Remind Me. Okay? And this is actually a cover of a song that was written in the 60s, right? It was originally made in the 60s, and it was a song originally for Dionne Warwick, very, very famous singer. She's the aunt of Whitney Houston, and that was the top 50 back there in the 60s. But then 20 years later, in 1983, this group Naked Eyes does what kind of song? It's like a synthesizer, synth pop. That's it, right? It's like pop music, but it's using a lot of synthesizer, and they reinvent the song. Right, and this was done by the group Naked Eyes, right? And they reached the U.S. top 20 in this one too, and they were in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100 in the summer of 1983. So, famous song, guys, all the way in the 80s. This song is called "Always Something There to Remind Me" from Naked Eyes.
I pass a small cafe where we would dance at night, and I can't help recalling how it felt to kiss and hold you tight. Oh, how can I forget you, girl, when there is always something there to remind me. Always something there to remind me. I was born to love her, and I will never be free. You'll always be a part of me. Whoa, whoa, whoa. If you should find you miss the sweet and tender love we used to share, just come back to the places where we used to go, and I'll be there. Oh, how can I forget you, girl, when there is always something there to remind me. Always something there to remind me. I was born to love her, and I will never be free. You'll always be a part of me, 'cause there is always something there to remind me. 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 Always something there to remind me.
And there you go. That is Naked Eyes with Always Something There to Remind Me. That is a cover of a song that was done in the 60s, but made again in a synthesizer pop music style. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Naked Eyes with Always Something There to Remind Me. I remember this song because it was used in a ton of commercials way back in my days too. All right, so let's get into today's last segment for today. What's today's last segment? Today's last segment, of course, every Mondays and Wednesdays, I kind of give my take on what things that are going on, especially with the message too. And I'm very, very interested in today's message because I love what Pastor Joan did at the very beginning of the message. It opens us up to say, oh, wait a second. Why is this message coming out? And the first thing she said was, I know that when you hear the word work, you think like, oh, like, and then it's like joy in work. And people can't understand how you can really, really enjoy work. Right? And spiritual stuff too. When you think about spiritual stuff as work, it's hard to enjoy. When you say like, like pre-dawn, oh, the joy of pre-dawn. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's the worst thing ever. And it's mainly because they sleep really late and they're really tired in the mornings, right? It's almost like they're not really getting, it's really hard to be awake during that time or very focused. But I liked it because it shows that there is some type of perception of work in Providence. And it's very interesting because I do think there is a big difference, and people like to separate the physical work and spiritual work in Providence, that it makes people feel bad for being successful in work. Let me tell you guys something. It's like a total contradiction in a lot of churches. I'm not gonna say just in Providence in general, because Sunsteam never talked about it like this. Sunsteam always praises people who have good jobs or who are working hard and to support their families and stuff. But I see this a lot in some places where in campus time, they're like totally against people working hard, almost like that. It's like, come on, you go to evangelize, why don't you come to service, why don't you doing this? It's always about spiritual in the campus time, right? But then when people go overseas or when people are working and really focusing on their schooling, then they kind of look down on them. You know what I mean? Like they look down, like, come on, man, you got to do some spiritual stuff, but they're so focused on their work. But the thing is, the reason why it's so contradictory is because in the future, if they become an elite, then they become people who are praised. So weird, because in order for you to be elite, you have to work so hard in school and do so many different things to be a lawyer or a doctor, to be a huge business person, to be someone very, not famous, but someone who's very high up when it comes to certain jobs and careers. It's weird because we have an elite department, and in the elite department, there's like certain professions that are part of it. And then when you think about it, you're like, wait a second, right? You're like, okay. But when they're going to school, they're kind of frowned upon for not doing the spiritual things and focusing too much on school. But when they become an elite, then they're praised for being an elite. When you're like, what? You guys were totally against me going overseas. You were totally against me doing this. And yet now when I become an elite, now you praise me? It's like, it's so weird when you think about that. Where is it, if like we have to look at, yes, evangelism is the greatest merit. It is, right? Because, and it's something that anyone can do, whether your career, whether your family, whether your campus or SS, anyone can do it. It's true, right? Anyone can go and evangelize. It's possible. Not an easy thing, but it's possible, right? That anyone could do it. Even a Milky Way could possibly do it, possibly, right? Now, here's the thing. It's the same as if you took it to the physical world. Something compares evangelizing someone to saving someone's life. And that's why even in the physical world, you are going to look at things differently. If someone saves your son compared to someone giving your son a candy, like it's like $1 for a chocolate bar, right? Your son really wants a chocolate bar, and then someone gives your son a chocolate bar. Are you going to be like, oh my goodness, you saved my son? But reality is, if you just give him a chocolate bar, it's completely different than someone literally pushing your son out of the way before he gets hit by a car. That is different. And that's why if you think about that, when it comes to merit-wise, of course there's levels of merit. And of course the highest level of merit is saving someone's life or evangelism, right? And that's something we put in our mind. And I don't think we should be arguing about that point. But the thing that we shouldn't do is diminish the other merits, saying that evangelism is the only merit. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many other merits out there. Like, how much, like, honestly, I talked about this on Monday too, is how many of you would be so happy to, let's just say that you guys had, like, for me is, if you had a gymnasium that was built in the church and someone donated a lot of money to build a gymnasium in the church, I would freaking kiss the guy, but not like passionately, but just a regular kiss, and say, oh, thank you so much. This is going to help in evangelism, right? Like for me too, I was like, wow, there are so many, like what about the people who help buy the Lord's Church? Whitestone Church, the church in Busan, the church for, what's that church called again? Was it the morning, what was the church called? Well, the Sapphire Church, right? Like all these 100 churches that we bought all over Japan, Taiwan, in Korea, over here in Malaysia, all those churches that were bought, were they bought by full-time spiritual running people, by pastors and head leaders and A's? No. The majority is almost zero. Like you look at all the full-time workers who don't make much money, they are there doing that and you're like, whoa, that's so crazy, right? That is really crazy. But it's done by people who are working really hard, make money, and they're contributing to the church in such a powerful and impactful way. It's big. It may not be big as saving someone's life, but it's still big. It still is. But I think that we kind of diminish the other merits too much, that in people's eyes, they feel like it's evangelism or bust. You have to directly be part of evangelism or you haven't done anything. And I think it can cause people to be really discouraged and not be able to really run well because they're discouraged that, oh, all I am doing is making money, this physical thing. But look at all these people. Think about reality, guys. There's like 80 to 90% of your church that's going to be working or in a family. 80 to 90%, guys. It's about 10%. If you're really lucky, you'll have 20% of your church running full time, like for like spiritual work, right? If the moment you say that evangelism is the only merit is the moment that you alienate 80 to 90% of your church. That's how bad it is if you think about it, right? And I really think that we have to rethink the perception of how we praise, encourage, and let people really be praised for like getting your first sale. praised for getting getting a promotion, making more money. Like, these are things that I think that are valuable. They're just as valuable. Of course, they got big merit. However, of course, it's different than literally saving someone's life, but it still has merit, and not small. It's still big merit. Don't you think? Imagine if I know that someone gave something money enough to buy the front hill. Can you imagine what merit there is in that? There's a professor from Taiwan. That's like, how many tens of thousands getting like 100,000. You know how much money that is, right? So that's something that we have to recognize. That is a big thing, because what about the people working for Warmingdon? What if it doesn't look like that? What if somebody was working by himself? That is huge merit. The people building the churches, the people doing, the people who are supporting the ministry, the people who are praying, the people who are, taking the people working hard out. Like, these are all things that are so important and valuable, and I hope that's something that will really, really be able to change the perception inside of our churches. Is everything has merit, and we have to praise and encourage all those things. Yes, there's difference in merit levels. However, we have to think very, very clearly that yes, the highest is evangelism, but everything still has merit. It really does. And I hope we can praise, encourage, and just get that mindset change for people to really, really understand what's happening with all the merits inside of a church. Okay, so that is the end of today's segment. Hope that makes you guys think a little bit more. If you want to know more about this, I did put a segment out. It will come out on Friday. This actually all comes from a lecturer's Q&A that we did on Tuesday, and the video will come out on Friday onto the Patreon account, and you'll get a little bit more deeper how we broke that down. Getting the Sunday message and breaking it down to be to have breaking it down so that we can make it to an education for people in the church. All right, so that is the end for today. Hope you guys had an amazing Wednesday podcast with us together, and have an awesome service tonight together with the Lord. So we'll see you guys again on Thursday on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion.